For whom do you work? Are you the protagonist, the antagonist, or just a bystander, seeing the story as it develops? As dark workers become more common, people are reflecting more on themselves and our divided world, which is pushing those who have been passive bystanders to think about taking a stand. There are rising light workers and dark workers in an age of growing polarization. The general well-being of mankind as a whole has declined due in part to the overabundance of dark workers in positions of control. In order to further their goals and foster anxiety, dark workers use a variety of strategies such as falsehoods, deceit, threats, and intimidation. This intentional planting of dread has the regrettable effect of cutting people off from the larger human society and forcing them to put their own survival first. Ironically, this tightens the hold that dark workers have on society. But light workers from all throughout the cosmos have answered the call and decided to come into our world to help bring about a dramatic transition, avoid disaster, and restore equilibrium. From a spiritual standpoint, working in both light and dark can result in increased strength, drive, and awareness. They are like two sides of the same coin, each with special qualities and functions of its own. Both light workers and dark workers understand that all living things are interrelated and that their actions have a significant influence on the environment. They understand that life is governed by the natural principles of action and response, as well as the ebb and flow of energy. The direction of their attention and energy is the primary distinction between light workers and dark workers. Dark workers turn their energies inward because they are driven by an unwavering desire for power and pleasure for themselves. As consumers, they derive their power from their surroundings. Light workers, on the other hand, focus their energy outward in an effort to raise humanity and further the greater good. They are creators, giving constructive change to life. Dark laborers frequently represent a destructive force and view the world through the prism of their physical existence. They steal power from others, openly seeing this as a necessary and natural practice. In their pursuit of self-interest, harming another person has little moral weight and has no impact on other people's well-being. But how can one recognize their course? Have you been polarized as a dark worker devoted to servicing oneself, or are you a light worker devoted to helping the greater good? In actuality, the majority of people lie in the middle between these two extremes. Most people are neither light workers nor dark workers, and they don't find the all-encompassing dedication to either side appealing. In our lives, most of us have experienced periods when we were both light workers and dark workers. You've undoubtedly heard that 1% of people hold 99% of the world's resources and have complete control over them. Perhaps you've even pondered why the vast majority of people on the planet live in abject poverty, while such a small number enjoy such immense wealth. You probably already had a sneaking suspicion that these people are active makers of reality, rather than merely passive spectators. Do you now see why adopting a stance on one side is so crucial? It is stated that light has 1,000,000 times greater power than darkness. When dark workers still have the cards, just think about how few actual light workers there are on Earth today. For this reason, being a light worker occasionally is insufficient. You need to be one always. Make sure the light does not go out inside of you by keeping it inside. High levels of consciousness are displayed by both light and dark workers, who recognize their influence on humankind as a whole. They understand that the effects of their acts, whether positive or negative, are far-reaching. To fully comprehend a dark worker, picture them as a cell in the human body, one that abstains from taking accountability for the body's health. Dark workers are essentially cancer cells that don't care about the effects of what they do on the body. Dark workers see most other people as disposable tools in their quest for power and pleasure. They prioritize their own rights and privileges over the rights of others, viewing human rights as a whole as irrelevant. Dark laborers are indifferent to other people's misery, so be it if it means that others have to suffer in order to satisfy the dark workers. Dark workers are driven by an insatiable desire for power, since it is the main way they can increase their level of pleasure. Dark workers frequently turn to inventing and using techniques that injure others for their own advantage without thinking about the pain they cause. They are apathetic to assisting others unless it serves their own interests because of their competitive mentality, which prioritizes winning for themselves over all other considerations. The two main tools used by dark workers to control others are greed and terror. For example, if you work in an atmosphere where incentives based on fear or rewards based on greed dictate your behavior, you can unintentionally become a pawn in the hands of darker people at the top of the hierarchy. These kinds of systems are capable of successfully brainwashing people into being obedient slaves who are ignorant of the greater purpose they serve. Dark workers contaminate the human body with their deeds, fostering an atmosphere that encourages the rise of other dark workers. They are at their best in an environment of dread, which they expertly manipulate. They gain greater power the more terror they instill. Fear develops loyal, willing slaves who voluntarily yield to the dictates of the evil workers. When terror isn't enough, dark workers resort to money as a substitute means of authority. The most proficient dark workers usually find themselves surrounded by legions of eager slaves, willing to give up their freedom in return for monetary wealth and a false sense of security. Fear and greed work well on those who have been conditioned to slavery, but they may not influence highly conscious people. The foundation of the dark workers' desires is obedience. They fantasize about having total influence over other people. A dark worker can be in charge of a company where honesty is not as important as compliance. Although many people find dark work perplexing, some people actively choose this route. Despite knowing that what they are doing is bad for mankind as a whole, they don't feel the need to apologize since they see self-serving as the pinnacle of who they are. These shadowy actors view all of mankind as only a weapon to be used however they see fit. From the standpoint of the dark worker, taking care of oneself is a sensible course of action. They see the world as a place of competition, and they see no moral issue in the tactic of putting oneself first. It is not considered bad to harm others for one's own benefit. Rather, it is seen as an opportunity too good to refuse, similar to a lavish feast. The advantage of dark workers is that they unintentionally add to the body's power. In the same way that illness gradually fortifies the immune system, dark workers indirectly advance the greater good by posing difficulties and roadblocks. They must use caution, though, so as not to jeopardize the body in the process. Many people believe that harming someone else for one's own benefit is wicked. For a truly dark worker, however, the damage done is mostly inconsequential. However, there are drawbacks to working in the shadows. Since it is typically viewed as socially inappropriate, dark workers face formidable obstacles in their pursuit of their objectives. As a result, the majority would rather hide their actual polarity, much like a hunter who would not approach possible prey. But of course, there are people on Earth who actually have these kinds of viewpoints. Yes, a large number of them hold influential and powerful positions. Every now and again, they are exposed and brought down, usually by other dark workers or whistleblowers with inclinations toward becoming light workers. For an evil worker, gaining power by all means necessary is the highest good. The fear of losing what they have earned is the one limitation they admit to. Even after a significant setback, dark workers seldom feel regret for their deeds. They are getting captured in their remorse. They will re-enter the game with greater caution and strategy if they stay true to their course. A powerful dark worker's biggest obstacle is usually being discovered in the public eye, which might have unfavorable outcomes. Despite their natural competitiveness, dark workers can band together to accomplish shared goals. When self-interest takes precedence over possible conflict, they are, however, eager to turn against one another. There must be more benefits than drawbacks. Dark workers occasionally find themselves in spaces where they are free to express who they really are, just not to the public. They may tell tales of people they have tricked or misled to further their agendas among their fellow dark workers. I'm often asked if dark laborers are bad people. The response may be more likely to be yes when viewed through the eyes of a light worker or passive spectator. But from the viewpoint of the dark worker, two options become apparent. First of all, the dark worker may declare, "No, I am not evil. I am pursuing my own good, which I consider to be the highest good." Opportunistic and pragmatic, dark workers understand that there are instances when using others as tools rather than collaborating with them is more effective. To them, it's okay to treat someone like a piece of bacon as long as it accomplishes their goals. Second, the dark worker can choose to actively accept and identify as evil. In this case, they declare, "I have chosen to be evil, and I revel in it." This statement is consistent with how society views evil, yet it is not troubling from the perspective of the dark worker. People who are not bad are viewed as weak and sometimes even stupid, because evil is synonymous with freedom and power. For the dark worker who likes playing the villain, it represents cunning and the ability to maneuver. Whatever stance a dark worker takes, one thing always happens. Their conscience accepts self-service as the ultimate good. They turn the real world into a playground, and other people are just objects to be used to achieve their goals. Like light work, dark work is a deliberate decision. You can choose to be the protagonist, antagonist, or bystander in the tale of your life. Many individuals live lives that are like those of passive spectators, not realizing that they have the ability to influence the story. The heroes and villains, however, control the plot and have a great deal of influence. There are enough heroes and villains in the world, but there are far too many passive spectators. It's interesting to note that when there are more antagonists, viewers tend to become heroes instead of just passive spectators. A more divided planet leads more people to consider choosing a side in the continuing story. Being a passive spectator has no intrinsic wrongs, but you must understand that the heroes' and villains' decisions will determine your destiny. You often find yourself riding the waves these prominent individuals produce as a passive viewer, unwittingly supporting one side or the other depending on their behavior. Your place in humanity's epic tale is determined by the decisions you make. When you do good deeds, you stand alongside the heroes and bring about constructive transformation. On the other hand, when you behave out of fear, you unintentionally assist the bad guys and feed a vicious cycle of negativity among the human race. There is an unhealthful overabundance of dark workers, which is causing the body's health to deteriorate. Because of their ability to persuade via lies, deceit, and terror, well-being has declined as a result of their influence. People are made to feel cut off from the source by this deception, which also puts them in survival mode and makes them put their own security ahead of the interests of society as a whole. This is exactly what dark workers want, since it gives them even more power. When terror isn't enough to keep them in control, they resort to greed. Strong dark workers frequently use physical suppression, suppressing opposition, and legal deception to consolidate their authority when others resist them. Only those who surrender to their control out of fear may be led by these dark workers, who are frequently perceived as controllers rather than real leaders. As opposed to being real leaders, highly aware people see them as carriers of illness. More dark workers are being created in the present fear-filled environment as more people choose to put their own interests ahead of everyone else. Dark workers flourish in an environment of fear and greed that is sustained by this cycle. Long-term conflicts, recessions, and false threats provide the perfect environment for dark workers to gain more influence. This seems a lot like the time we are living in, doesn't it? However, mankind as a whole continues to be intensely aware of how things are going wrong. It acknowledges the threat that dark workers offer and the necessity of bucking their influence. In response, the human race mobilizes additional light workers to fend against the encroaching darkness. Though it has been increasing for decades, this call to action has recently become more urgent. Some light workers, those who are either born with an intrinsic tendency or who gradually awaken to their responsibility, protect the body of mankind. You may be wondering if you are one of the people called to this task as you read these lines. It is important to recognize that not everyone will be able to relate to the idea that they are the ones being called. Our view is frequently distorted by fear and greed, which keeps us from responding to this greater calling. However, if you work to rise beyond the awareness of greed and fear, you could start to feel a desire to act morally and make a positive difference in the world. Over time, this nebulous impression will intensify and become more precise. It is a thrilling phenomenon that light workers are becoming more aware of their worldwide duty. It is not without difficulties, though, since it entails letting go of the past. It might be difficult to go through this transition, since it means letting go of past goals and desires. However, this procedure is necessary to provide space for a future goal that is more significant. Seeking the objectives of the greater human race is far more fulfilling than pursuing personal interests. Along with self-discovery, the path entails a strong dedication to serving others, encouraging good change, and battling the influence of evil works. As you are well aware, we are living in highly divisive times when the forces of evil appear to be in control. As a single entity, humanity must decide which course it will take, that of the light worker or the dark worker. The dark road is one of delusion that eventually results in our consciousness collapsing and regressing. Humanity has been perilously moving toward the first scenario ever since nuclear weapons were first deployed. That's the reason so many light workers have taken on human form at this particular period on Earth, to avert disaster, preserve equilibrium, and direct mankind toward progress. In response to the increasing darkness, light workers are encouraging good change and providing hope. Since we are all just cells in the body of humanity, we must individually make a decision while keeping in mind that not picking a side is also a decision. In truth, inaction means giving in to the powers of evil and growing up in a world ruled by dark workers. It is so difficult to hold onto the inner light and resist giving in to dread. A pivotal point in our spiritual path is the decision to be a light worker or a dark worker. Through behaving with love and compassion, we may make a positive impact on the world by eradicating the darkness created by unscrupulous individuals. We can bring about a better, more peaceful future for all if we work together. You have to choose who you wish to serve. By acting from a place of love and compassion, we can contribute to the greater good, illuminating the world and dispelling the shadows cast by dark workers. It is through our collective efforts that we can usher in a brighter, more harmonious future for all. You must decide whom you want to serve. The path of darkness may offer short-term gains, but it leads to a destructive and ultimately unsustainable outcome. On the other hand, the path of light offers long-term growth, evolution, and consciousness expansion. In these times of immense polarization, the power to shape the narrative lies within each individual. Heroes and villains may wield significant influence, but passive observers can become catalysts for positive change. Recognizing your own power and choosing the path of love and compassion can be a transformative force. The awakening of light workers is not just an individual journey, it's a collective movement. As more individuals resonate with the call to counter the growing darkness, the momentum for positive change intensifies. Light workers, driven by a sense of duty and compassion, play a crucial role in steering humanity away from the brink. The challenges faced by light workers, such as shedding past aspirations and overcoming the conditioning of fear and greed, are essential steps in their journey. It requires courage, resilience, and a commitment to something greater than personal gain. As you navigate your own spiritual journey, consider the impact of your choices on the grand story of humanity. Every act of love, kindness, and compassion contributes to positive change. By aligning with the forces of light, you become a beacon of hope in a world threatened by darkness. The choice between being a hero, a villain, or a passive observer is ongoing. It's not a one-time decision, but a series of choices that define your path. In a world where the influence of dark workers is palpable, your commitment to the light becomes a powerful counterforce. Remember, the power of light is 1,000,000 times stronger than that of darkness. Even in challenging times, the collective efforts of light workers can tip the balance towards a more harmonious and enlightened future. Embrace the role you play in the grand narrative of humanity and choose the path that aligns with love, compassion, and positive change.